The entire text has concluded. Jung Nan wishes everyone that all their wishes come true and that they are happy every day. The exciting story begins now. After the top-tier singer announced her marriage news at the concert, she suddenly collapsed, crying uncontrollably, because she had received the news of my death. Tong Zixuan. We met when we were 6 years old. We parted ways when I was 24. I never had the courage to tell you. I truly loved you. Tong Zixuan was a rising star, a genius singer who emerged out of nowhere. At 18, she became famous with a hit song, Listening to Flowers Bloom. It swept the Chinese music scene. Soon after, she went abroad to further her studies. At 20, she returned with an album and quickly became famous all across the country. She was about to hold a concert at the Bird's Nest. Her fans were fervently preparing to show their support. I really want to go see Sister Tong Zixuan's concert. In the hospital, the girl in the bed next to mine was holding her phone. She was crying loudly, but I couldn't get tickets to the concert at all. If I miss seeing her concert this time, I'll never get another chance in my life. She was 12 years older than me. No one would laugh at her. The people in this ward, they have today but no tomorrow. Her father came in carrying dinner and said. She quickly stuffed her phone under the pillow. After dinner, she squeezed into my bed. She whispered, "Brother, you must not tell my dad. I'm just complaining a bit. Tickets are hard to get and not cheap. I'll just watch the concert video later." You really like Tong Zixuan so much. I pinched her cheek gently. She said, feeling down. Sister Tong Zixuan's songs are so beautiful. Every time I finish my chemotherapy, listening to her songs makes the pain feel more bearable. As she spoke, she began enthusiastically telling me everything about Tong Zixuan. Ziyi said seriously to me, "This concert is also to celebrate her 24th birthday. She used to say she planned to get married at 24. I wonder if there will be any surprises at this concert." Sai, actually, as fans, we've long been mentally prepared for this. After all, we could never marry her. Ziyi opened their fan group chat. Messages kept coming in. Fans who got tickets were cheering in the group. "Brother, let me tell you a secret," Ziyi whispered in my ear. "I think Sister Tong Zixuan and Ji Bo Daje will definitely announce their playful and mischievous side in interviews." And I couldn't help but laugh. "You already know, huh? Where do you get all this information?" Ziyi replied proudly. "I'm an old member of the fan group. We all have our own sources of information." Back when Ji Bo Daje accompanied her abroad to study, and they returned together, they were inseparable. Ziyi needed to go for her treatment. After the nurse came in, she walked out in a daze. Not long after, Ziyi's father came in carrying a bag of oranges, looking a bit awkward. As he walked over, she glanced at me for a moment. It seemed like he didn't know how to begin. Ziyi's father worked as a delivery man. He was a simple man by nature, not good with words. Asking for favors like this was something rare for him. "I'll find a way to get Ziyi tickets to the concert," I said, taking the oranges from him. "I'll consider it a surprise for her." Uncle's wrinkles at the corner of his eyes immediately softened. He quickly said, "Thank you so much. When the time comes, let me know how much it costs." I sat alone on the hospital bed for a while. I sent a message to Tong Zixuan. "Can Tong Zixuan save me to tickets?" Tong Zixuan quickly replied to my message. "Go ask around on the streets. Who would leave tickets for their ex-boyfriend?" Her words were laced with unmistakable jealousy and lost vision in his left eye. "She is currently under investigation at the police station." As I spoke, I remembered when I was 6 years old. That period of my life, growing up in a violent environment. My father was an alcoholic, and he would come home every day to beat my mother. To protect her, I would often fight with my father, but it was all in vain. A child's strength was no match for an adult's. When Tong Zixuan was 18, at this point, I could barely continue speaking. I was overwhelmed by memories of that time. Remembering the scene where my mom stabbed my dad with a kitchen knife. It was like she was releasing all the pain she had endured over the years, stabbing him again and again. I was lying on the floor, watching that scene unfold. The blood splattered onto my calf. She uploaded a song on Penguin Music. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't wipe it off. Later, my mom collapsed, sitting in a pool of blood, looking at me without saying a word. Then she turned around and jumped out of the window. It wasn't until much later that Aunt Yu told me my mother had been diagnosed with cancer, and that's why she chose to die with my father. She was afraid that after her death, I would be left alone. It was a birthday gift for me. Tortured by my father, it was the only thing she could do for me as a mother. That's when I became weak, timid, self-conscious, and sensitive. I trembled all over as those sounds from the crowd around, listening to flowers bloom, me on the square, flooded my ears. I was in so much pain that I nearly passed out, making up stories to deceive. At this point, still trying to gain sympathy? We didn't do anything wrong. We're just speaking the truth. Besides, your girlfriend, other than singing, isn't well known behind the scenes either. In just 1 week, we didn't say anything wrong. I couldn't continue speaking. I passed out. Li Rubing took me to the hospital. Tong Zixuan appeared in the hospital. She didn't say anything. Behind her was Ji Bo-da. Ji Bo-da took charge and settled things with Tong Zixuan. There was only one condition. That was for Tong Zixuan to sign with her father's agency. The song went viral across major music platforms and study abroad with her. We sat under the summer sky, looking at the stars. Tong Zixuan remained silent for a long time. It was I who spoke first. Tong Zixuan, go ahead. When you come back, you'll be a superstar everyone will look up to. Then we'll live together. In the description of the lyrics, she wrote, "This song is for my boyfriend. He once suffered trauma and couldn't speak, but now he can finally talk again." Her voice, to me, was like the meaning of flowers blooming in spring. Later, many journalists interviewed Tong Zixuan, asking her who that song was written for. She never answered that question, not until 3 months ago. A reporter asked her about her love life. Suddenly, she said, "I have a boyfriend. It's still the same person from when I was 18. A brief sentence, and it exploded on trending. Fans went to great lengths to dig into her past, wanting to know who the person she loved at 18 was. They were even more eager to find out who exactly was worthy of Tong Zixuan's love for 6 years. Li Bagu made a call to interrogate me. Zhang Chen, is this the scene you wanted to see today? Do you have any idea how much manpower and resources have been spent to erase her past? Do you even know how much Tong Zixuan has sacrificed to get to where she is today? I've always known. She went abroad to study music with no knowledge of the language, was alienated and insulted. She broke every preconception she had about music. Starting from scratch like an elementary school student, she was denied, doubted, and mocked. She, such a proud and stubborn person, gritted her teeth, learning word by word. In just 2 short years, she mastered it. That's because she treated each day like 2, working day and night. Before returning to China, she called me. As she spoke, she began to cry. "Little mute, I can finally go back and see you. I really missed you so much." Her achievements today were hard-earned. Tong Zixuan had a clause in her contract with the company. Before the contract expired, she was forbidden from revealing her relationship. If she broke the contract, she would have to pay a sky-high penalty for breaching the contract, and she would be shelved. Tong Zixuan said this in front of the reporters because the company was constantly hyping her relationship with Ji Bo-da. She wanted to fight back a little and also test the fans' attitudes. Tong Zixuan privately told me, "The company has gone too far this time. They sent someone to secretly take photos of Boda and me, maliciously choosing angles to stir up publicity. They just want to tie me and Boda together. Even if I deliberately say this in front of the media, the company will ignore it. They won't stop the hype. Zhang Chen, don't worry. Except for you. I will never have feelings for anyone else. Between Tong Zixuan and me, there is absolute trust. After Boda found me, he said, Pen Xiang, I understand now. No matter how I push Tong Zixuan in your relationship, only if you voluntarily withdraw would she give up. So when I was diagnosed with cancer, I logged into my account and deleted the introduction about listening to flowers bloom. I took the initiative to break up with Tong Zixuan because I was afraid that after I was gone, she would be left all alone. We've lived through hardship in the first half of our lives, but in the second half, I hope she will stand on the stage and live proudly. In the hospital, I rejected the doctor's chemotherapy plan. When Li Rubing found out, he sighed. With your attitude, I really don't know whether to say you're just mentally strong. Or should I say, you've given up on yourself? I haven't told your parents about your illness yet. I don't know how to break the news to them. I smiled faintly and remained silent. Li Rubing stared at me for a long while before speaking. When you first came to our house, you were 65 meters tall, wearing blue shorts, shy and self-conscious. Later, you learned to live. When we met in the living room, you stood next to me and didn't leave. It took you a long time to call me Sis Rubing. I never told you. But when you were practicing speaking on the balcony in your room, I could actually hear you from downstairs. You kept talking to Uncle Lee, Aunt Lee, and many times, when the communication didn't go well, you'd quietly cry in frustration. I could hear it all. I stared at her in surprise, clearing my throat. Before she continued, back then, wasn't it you who always blocked me, forcing me to talk to you? I just wanted you to interact more at home, so that you could have normal social interactions at school. That way, you wouldn't be bullied. I froze, tears welling up in my eyes. Zhang Chen, say goodbye to your parents properly. Li Rubing hugged me, patting my back gently. I whispered. I went back to the Li family's house, and an uncle's eyes were both red and swollen. They didn't ask about my illness. They just gave me a hug. At dinner, they kept teasing me, trying to get me to talk. That night, I sat on the balcony, watching the stars. When I received a message from Tong Zixuan, don't you always say you never come to my concerts? Why do you want tickets this time? Who are you bringing with you? Just then, Li Rubing came upstairs to bring me some fruit. I thought for a moment, took a photo of Li Rubing and sent it to her. With my girlfriend, Tong Zixuan's phone immediately started buzzing. I didn't pick up. Li Rubing glanced over, sighed, and patted my arm in comfort. Another half hour passed, and Tong Zixuan sent a WeChat message. Zhang Chen, I will announce my engagement to Boda at the concert. Congratulations! You've moved on, and we've parted on good terms. I stared at the message for a while, but didn't reply. Tong Zixuan still sent me to MP tickets. I gave them to Ziyi. Ziyi was thrilled. Brother, this is the VIP area. You can't buy this with money. You'll even have a chance to interact with Sister Tong Zixuan. Her chemotherapy is working well. There's color back in her pale face. I shared a little secret with Ziyi. 5 minutes later, Ziyi's scream almost shattered the ceiling. The girl was in such great shape. She didn't look like a cancer patient at all. She mumbled, "You're actually the famous Egg Fried Rice." Egg Fried Rice was Tong Zixuan's earliest fan club. It was established when Tong Zixuan was 16. Over the years, they had always shared photos and the latest news about Tong Zixuan, gaining quite a following. Fans would often say, Egg Fried Rice takes photos of Tong Zixuan with a warmth that no one else can capture. the perfect boyfriend angle. Tong Zixuan read those comments and quietly liked them using a secondary account, praising her fans for their good taste. The year we registered this Weibo, we were still in that small town. At that time, Tong Zixuan was cooking in the kitchen, and I was signing with her in sign language. The future superstar Tong Zixuan. I'm going to be your first fan club member. We were choosing a name for her Weibo. Tong Zixuan poked my forehead and said, "Thank you so much, little mute. I don't even have a decent guitar. How can I talk about becoming a superstar? You're just trying to annoy me, right? Then let's name it Tong Zixuan, the narcissist." I wrote it down for her, but Tong Zixuan grabbed the phone from my hand and registered it as 1 bowl of egg fried rice on Weibo. She helplessly said to me, "Thank you, future superstar's little assistant. Can we eat now?" At that time, we were living in a small rented room, sharing 1 bowl of egg fried rice. On cold nights, we would talk quietly, and I would pretend to fall asleep early, because after I slept, Tong Zixuan would go to the hospital to visit Aunt Yu. Tong Zixuan asked me, "Little mute, do you really think I can become a big star in the future and hold a concert at the Bird's Nest?" Her voice was filled with insecurity and resignation. Life had cornered us. No one dared to talk about dreams in the noisy world. Dreams had become a luxury for us, only in the quiet of the night. Would Tong Zixuan dare to ask me this? I wrote in the palm of her hand, "Yes, you will. Then the 3 of us will live in a big house, and sign language will love sunbathing the most. She lie on the balcony applying a face mask. You play the piano and she sing. As for me, I'll just watch." Tong Zixuan smiled and didn't say anything more. 8 years had passed since then, but it felt like a century. Tong Zixuan became a highly sought-after singer. My illness was cured, but Aunt Sign Language was no longer with us, and we never lived in that big house together. People grow up, and in the process, we gain and lose. Sometimes when I think back on the days before I was 18, it feels like a pill wrapped in sugar coating. The sweetness fades, and you're left with the bitterness, but it still heals. I keep reminiscing about the past with Tong Zixuan. Maybe this is the sign of a person nearing death. There's no future left, so I keep reliving the past. "Brother, why are you crying?" Ziyi gently wiped my tears away with her soft hand. "You seem to have so many sad things." I hugged her and said, "Your dad said, if you go through 3 more rounds of chemotherapy, you'll be able to control the disease. Ziyi, I'm giving you this Weibo account. Please help me manage it. Is that okay?" Ziyi froze when she heard that. "Why? Brother, are you going to disappear?" I smiled and said to her, "No, because I really love Tong Zixuan. I'm thinking that after I'm gone, this love can live on through this Weibo account. Promise me, Ziyi. Keep updating it, okay? As long as this Weibo continues to update, Tong Zixuan will never know that I've passed away. She will marry Ji Boder, become an even more popular singer, win many awards, but her future will just be without me." The Weibo account 1 bowl of egg fried rice. The tickets were given to Ziyi. I took the medicine and went home. Not home, but the small apartment where Tong Zixuan and I used to live. It was 1 living room, our little nest. When I entered the living room, I received another message from Tong Zixuan. She was always sending me messages, even though I replied rarely. "Did you get the tickets? Are you really coming with Li Rubing?" I replied, "Let's see. Are you just going to make me mad?" Tong Zixuan quickly replied, adding 10 exclamation marks to protest. "I have to work now. If I finish early, I'll contact you again." She attached a cute, angry emoji. It looked like she was pointing directly at me. Tong Zixuan puffed out her cheeks, rolled her eyes, and added a poorly done fire effect on her head. I can only imagine what expression the staff must have had seeing her like that. After all, to her fans, Tong Zixuan had always been the quiet, aloof type. At home, I slowly began cleaning, planning to organize everything. I walked around the house and only then realized that there were traces of Tong Zixuan everywhere. In the bathroom, there was her toothbrush. In the wardrobe, her pajamas. On the shoe rack, her slippers. Even the guitar she often used was quietly placed in the study. I thought I had prepared myself to say goodbye to her. But when I opened the fridge and saw the note stuck on it, I realized I wasn't strong enough after all. I held on to the note, laying on the floor, crying silently. The note said, "Here's some soup for you. Heat it for 10 minutes and you can drink it. I'm going abroad for half a month. Don't order takeout. I'll have someone come cook for you. When you wake up, remember to message me." At the back of the note, she drew a few hearts with flames. This note was from 3 months ago. The soup in the fridge had long gone bad. That morning, I hadn't had time to open the fridge before I fainted and was rushed to the hospital. When I woke up, the first person I saw was Li Rubing. She brought me some bad news. I had cancer. The chances of recovery were slim. And back then, Tong Zixuan was in Singapore for her concert. And that night, when the diagnosis came through, I received a video call from her. She hadn't removed her makeup yet, sitting in the lounge, calling me on video. I answered quickly. Tong Zixuan glanced at the time and furrowed her brow. "Aren't you supposed to be out having dinner with colleagues right now? Where are you?" "The park. My life is simple. Work, exercise, read books." Tong Zixuan remembered everything I said to her. And if something felt off, she would notice it immediately. She could easily tell. Since I was in the hospital lobby when I answered the call, she quickly picked up on it. I whispered to her, "Tong Zixuan." I deleted the introduction on my Listening to Flowers Bloom profile. "Let's break up." Tong Zixuan's face changed instantly. She knew I never threw tantrums, and if I ever spoke up, it meant I had made a decision. "Zhang Chen, no matter what you're going through, wait for me to come back and we'll talk about it. I'll book a flight back to the country tonight. You stay at home and wait for me. Don't go anywhere." "Okay." I smiled at her. "Tong Zixuan, I'm not throwing a tantrum. I'm just feeling really tired. Do you remember? Last New Year's Eve, when we were on our date, a stalker fan showed up. I got stabbed by him. My arm almost became useless. It caused a huge scene, but it was Jiboda who stepped in and said the person you spent New Year's with was actually her. That you were still single? Now everyone is spreading rumors that the person you like is Jiboda. I feel like a shadow, and I really don't want to continue like this." Tong Zixuan went silent, pressing her lips together, her brows furrowed even deeper. So the closer we are, the more we know what to say to hurt each other. That incident really shook Tong Zixuan. She would wake up terrified from her dreams every night. There were several nights she cried herself awake. I remember after I came out of the operating room, Tong Zixuan held me, calling my name over and over. "Zhang Chen, little mute. I'm glad you're okay. Otherwise, I would really go crazy." Her tears soaked my clothes. I joked, "Wow, big star. You really cry a lot." Tong Zixuan wasn't the sentimental type, but she always cried for me. And I wasn't the cheerful, lively type, but I always smiled for her. Both Tong Zixuan and I were trying hard to live with intention for each other. Jiboda and Tong Zixuan were tightly bound together, and she always felt guilty towards me. Being attacked by extreme fans was a wound that stayed with her. I never mentioned these two things, afraid they would burden her. But I didn't expect that these two things would become the perfect excuse for me to push her away. I told her, "Jiboda has been working with you all these years. I've seen you two going in and out together. And to be honest, it's been painful for me too." I even told her, "Tongzi Ixuan dot, you know, I don't like to complicate simple things. Don't put too much pressure on me, or I'll be in pain." Tong Zixuan didn't come to see me because she knew that once I get anxious, I'll lose my voice. She only made one request: to stay in touch with her. I've been in the hospital for the past 3 months, and this is the first time I'm home cleaning out the food in the fridge. Suddenly, I lost the strength to keep cleaning. When others clean things up before they leave, it's to leave behind things for their loved ones. But in this world, I only have Tong Zixuan as family. Since I was 6 years old, we've been relying on each other. She stood on a bench to cook porridge for me, cooked meals, squatted in the yard, washing my clothes, and I would give her the money I earned from collecting scrap to buy her a new skirt. Tong Zixuan is my lover, but also my family. When I was 16, my sign language and passed away. We both had to go to school and eat. We rented a house, and even though Tong Zixuan's voice was damaged from singing in bars, she still couldn't support the two of us. Before Aunt Yu passed away, she entrusted me to a friend of hers, and Tong Zixuan was valued for her talent and potential. No matter how much reluctance I had with Tong Zixuan, we had to part ways. Later, I went to Beijing with Aunt Li, and before I got on the train, Tong Zixuan, with red eyes, said to me, "Zhang Chen, you must wait for me." I stayed in Beijing for a year. One evening, during a phone call, Tong Zixuan suddenly asked me, "This year, have you been very scared? Is it really tough?" I shook my head, telling her I was fine, but Tong Zixuan suddenly covered her eyes, and after a long pause, she said, "How could you be doing well? You can't even speak. You get nervous and scared around strangers. Your sign language is something others can't understand." Aunt Li called me and said, "After treatment, you could say a few words, but others don't know why you lost your voice." I know. When you force yourself to speak, you must think of that night. The night when I lost my parents at 6. And from that day on, I couldn't speak. I developed severe autism. Tong Zixuan saw through me, and I stopped pretending to be happy. She was right. When I went to Aunt Li's house, I pretended to be cheerful, but in reality, every day I stayed in my room, practicing speaking. I practiced again and again what I wanted to say. I was afraid of disappointing Aunt Li's expectations. Seeing a psychologist cost a lot of money, and if I couldn't speak soon, they would be disappointed in me. I had no choice but to push myself, practicing relentlessly. Aunt Li, Japan, they didn't know how many times I had to practice these simple words before I could say them fluently. But Tong Zixuan knew. Through the screen, we silently shed tears. Before Aunt Yu passed away, she once told me, "Zichen, Auntie is going to die soon. I wish I could stay with you both longer. When I'm gone, Aunt Li will come to take you in. She's a good person. That girl has musical talent, and someone will nurture it." But I wasn't a child people liked. I couldn't talk, was shy and lacked courage. I had grown up in unstable environments, becoming insecure and overly sensitive. Whenever it got lively, I would shrink back, not daring to make a sound. Kids like me were never popular. In class, I was like a transparent shadow. That's why Aunt Yu worried even more. If Aunt Li, a stranger to me, didn't like me, I wouldn't know where my future lay. That night, we lay side by side. She told me so many things. "Zichen, Auntie really wishes I could watch you both grow up, but I don't have enough time. You both have to take care of yourselves." When morning came, I woke up, and Aunt Yu was gone. Aunt Li took me to Beijing, sent me to school, and got me medical treatment. Tong Zixuan and I were apart for 2 whole years, only staying in touch by phone. When I turned 18, Tong Zixuan came to Beijing. At the train station, she ran through the crowd, rushing over to embrace me. I looked at her and carefully said each word. "Sis." Tong Zixuan stared at me for a long time. She took a long time before she spoke. "Don't call me sis anymore. From now on, you're not allowed to do that." She also said, "Zi Yaba, I'm really happy that you can speak. Tong Zixuan squeezed my hand, as if there was something she still wanted to say. After I recovered, the first two words I could say were Zixuan. In these 2 years, I went to see a psychologist without interruption, and finally, I could communicate with people normally. I never told Tong Zixuan that the first thing I said when I could speak was her name. Tong Zixuan held me tightly, her eyes red as she smiled. I sat alone in a quiet room, thinking back on our past, and realized how much I missed her. I received a call from Ziyi, and I agreed to her invitation. Tong Zixuan's fans had arranged an early birthday celebration for her. Many fans were gathered at a hotel, waiting for her in a small banquet hall. Ziyi managed to get to tickets, and she was taking me along. Brother, I'll continue to run your Weibo for you. Let's go meet Tong Zixuan. Ziyi gently held my hand, forcing back tears as she said, "You've liked her for so many years. You should have a proper goodbye." So I went. As a fan of Tong Zixuan, we sat in the last row, waiting eagerly for Tong Zixuan's arrival. Half an hour later, Tong Zixuan appeared. She looked a little tired. Ziyi whispered to me, "Recently, Tong Zixuan's workload has been really heavy. She's taken on several endorsements. She's been hopping between different cities non-stop. We're all worried about her." We even protested collectively under her studio's Weibo posts. I listened a little dazed. No wonder every time I received a message from her in the past 3 months, she was always in work mode. I didn't have time to think deeply, as the fans' screams quickly drowned my thoughts. The moment she appeared on stage, everyone screamed in unison. Following the rehearsal, we all raised our glow sticks and loudly shouted, "Tong Zixuan, Tong Zixuan, we love you. Forever and ever, never change." I shouted too, but I got the rhythm wrong. When everyone stopped, I was still shouting, "Zixuan, I love you." My voice, in the suddenly quiet hall, sounded a bit out of place. Tong Zixuan, who had been somewhat distracted, looked up at me. I quickly pulled my hood down and pretended to avoid her gaze. "Zixuan, sister ... Ziyi, noticing, immediately said loudly, "This brother has liked you for a long time and came specially to cheer you on." Tong Zixuan looked at me, a smile slowly spreading across her face. She said gently, "I know." I tightly gripped the glow stick in my hand, thinking back to many years ago, when I accompanied her as she performed at a bar. At that time, she was only 15 years old. Sign language auntie was too sick to work, so Tong Zixuan had to take up unlicensed gigs, singing at bars. After her late shifts, the bartender would secretly make us to cups of ice cream cocktails. We'd sit together, dreaming about the future. Tong Zixuan said, "Little Yaba, when I become a big star, at every fan meeting, at every concert, you have to be there. You need to stand in the front row and shout along with the fans. You have to shout the loudest. Understand?" Tong Zixuan was picturing the future, and I promised earnestly. We both used to imagine union. She stood on the stage, supported by thousands, shining brightly, while I waited below, as always, for her to finish singing. Sadly, this was my first time attending her offline fan meeting, and also my last. Fans chatted with Tong Zixuan, feeling like longtime friends. I don't know who brought up the topic of relationships first, but everyone happily shared their romantic lives with her. When it was my turn, Tong Zixuan asked, "This friend, what about you? Is the person you liked when you were younger still by your side?" She looked at me, her gaze firm and persistent, as though she wouldn't give up until she got an answer. I met her slightly reproachful gaze, and suddenly felt like laughing, but I didn't get a chance to answer. Season Bo appeared. As soon as he appeared, and stole everyone's attention, Ji Badai was dazzling, and when standing next to Tong Zixuan, they made an incredibly perfect pair. Fans loudly shouted Ji Badai's name. "Brother-in-law!" I'm not sure who spoke first, but soon everyone joined in. Calling Jibadai brother-in-law, Ziyi excitedly said, "Brother, they really make a perfect pair. If Jibadai were our brother-in-law, we'd all accept it. Yes, they're a perfect match. I've thought so for a long time. I first met Jibadai at a bar in Beijing. At that time, Tong Zixuan came to Beijing to visit me. She kissed me for the first time at the station. Later, she stayed in Beijing. She sang at a bar while I went to university. So we didn't have to separate anymore. Every weekend, I would go to the bar where she performed. Gradually, more and more people started coming to listen to her sing. Jibadai was one of them. He was always so noticeable. In the dimly lit bar, everyone could spot him at a glance, but no one dared to provoke him. Rumor had it that his family had a powerful background, and he always had bodyguards with him when going out. I sat at the bar doing my homework, drinking the juice the bartender made for me. Later on, I often dreamed about those nights, the peaceful yet noisy nights. When Tong Zixuan took a break, we would hide beneath the bar counter, leaning close to each other, kissing. She'd look at my backpack and laugh at me. "You're in college now." Still like a child, always. Carrying a backpack, memorizing words, doing homework. I always feel like I'm committing a crime. I blush but don't say anything. University coursework is still quite busy. I need to work hard to earn a scholarship. So I take my studies seriously. After another year of singing, I'll be able to establish myself in Beijing. Tong Zixuan dreamt of the future. Then you'll move out of Li's place. Every time Li Rubing sees me, she gives me a cold shoulder. I defended myself. She's just worried about me. Li Rubing knows that I'm with Tong Zixuan, and she always thinks that because Tong Zixuan never went to university and worked at a bar, she thinks it's not a good thing. Tong Zixuan sighed. She has reason to be worried. After all, what future could someone like me have? I felt heartbroken for her. "You're great, really great." Tong Zixuan immediately smiled, with a hint of pride. I realized she was teasing me. It was at that moment, when Jibadai found me. He looked at me for a while, and then said, disappointed, "I thought you were someone special. Someone who would make Tong Zixuan refuse my help. But I didn't expect you to be just an ordinary person. Tong Zixuan being with you is probably out of pity. She's probably just helping you." Jibadai's words didn't sound malicious. He was simply stating his opinion. But I had heard this kind of thing before. The guys in the bar who admired Tong Zixuan often came over to mock me. They would ridicule me. I didn't have any notable qualities worth mentioning. Even when faced with others' mockery, I couldn't even come up with a retort. Although I could speak now, I still became nervous in the face of hostility. Tong Zixuan heard Jibadai's words and angrily said, "You're disgusting. Zhang Chen is the person I love. What are you even? Who do you think you are to say such things to him?" Later, she quit that bar job and found another one. Tong Zixuan's popularity remained as intense as ever. I stood in a corner, watching her crazy fans. Suddenly, I felt a bit lost. If Tong Zixuan becomes a big star in the future, will we still be able to hold hands in the middle of the bustling crowd? At that time, we didn't know that the gears of fate were already grinding their way through. Rumors started spreading around school, coming from who knows where. They said she worked in a bar. That's Ginger, right? Did you hear her boyfriend is mute? Isn't she the one singing in a bar? Seems like there are a lot of men living off women these days. The rumor spread fiercely. In the class, I was removed from the list of candidates for the national scholarship because of those rumors. I never told Tong Zixuan about these things until that time when I was pulled and pushed onto the stage by them. So I fought back and struggled with them. The chaos erupted right then. One of them was blinded by a broken bottle. Since I was still in school, Tong Zixuan went to the police station to make sure I could continue my studies peacefully, even though it was the other side who made the first move. We became the ones at fault. I tried everything to help Tong Zixuan, tirelessly telling me the person's family background is very strong. He insists on no compensation and wants to send Tong Zixuan to jail. Your uncle visited an old friend today, hoping to think of a solution. Even though they made the first move, the rumors at school were also scattered everywhere. Those rumors suddenly painted me as a man living off a woman. I thought for a long time and decided to stand up. I was so scared to talk to strangers, and I feared facing their suspicious gazes. When I stood in the square, looking at everyone gathering towards me, I almost fainted, but I knew I couldn't back down. Hundreds of classmates, gathered together thanks to Li Rubing's call, stood there with me. I held the loudspeaker, closed my eyes, and forced back the tears. It took half a minute before I could open my eyes. Hello, everyone. I'm Zhongling from Class 3 of Department 30. I'm sure you've all heard the rumors. Not only have students from other departments insulted us ... They even physically assaulted us in the process of self-defense. One of my classmates was injured. You'll play the guitar and she sing. I'll read and write. Just thinking about it is so beautiful, isn't it? I spoke slowly. She listened carefully. When I was 16, I said the same thing. But back then, the plan also included sign language anti. At 18, I mentioned it again. But sign language anti was no longer in the picture. At that time, we were anxious about the future. Yet, we still tried to include each other in our plans. Who could have known that by 24? In this dream, Tong Zixuan became a big star. But we became. It was me and her. Tong Zixuan tightly held my hand and said to me, "Okay." She went abroad with Ji Boda. Before they left, Ji Boda said to me, "Zhang Chen, do you know why Tong Zixuan agreed? Because I told her, no matter how well you sing, you're still just a high school graduate who plays in bars. And having a boyfriend like you, people will always gossip about her wherever she goes. Zhang Chen, it doesn't matter that you've known Tong Zixuan for 12 years. Let's make a bet. When she comes back, there won't be a place for you by her side." Ji Boda thought he had won the bet. He appeared at the fan support event, listening to fans calling him brother-in-law. His gaze at me was filled with provocation. "Ji Boda is not your brother-in-law." Tong Zixuan interrupted the fans' frenzy. She spoke every word with utmost seriousness. "Everyone who is here today, you are all friends who have supported me since my debut. You know, my first song was called Listening to Flowers Bloom. It was written for someone I loved when I was 18. That person has always been in my heart. Meeting you all before the concert, I hope that when I announced who that person is, you could send blessings to us on Weibo and protect him from attacks from others." Tong Zixuan paused slightly at this point. She bowed deeply to everyone. "Please, when the time comes, stand with me to protect him. All right?" Ziyi stood on the chair shouting, "Whoever our sister likes, we'll like too. Always support our sister." Other fans shouted in a frenzy, "Always support our sister." The smile on Ji Boda's face slowly faded away. I stood in the crowd, silent and still. After the fan event ended, Ziyi went to the restroom. I waited outside for her. Li Boda blocked my way. "Aren't you already broken up with Tong Zixuan? What are you doing here?" Ji Boda said arrogantly. "What can being with her bring?" "Nothing. Take a look in the mirror. Someone as ordinary as you is not worthy of her." For the 4 years I was with Tong Zixuan, Ji Boda would always say things like this. He would belittle my appearance, saying I was just an ordinary person, one who wouldn't even make a ripple in a crowd. If it weren't for my early connection with Tong Zixuan, I'd never have had a chance to be with her. But I never took Ji Bo Da's words to heart, because he knew the bond between Tong Zixuan and me. And no one could shake that. That's why he acted like a clown, jumping around. You used Tong Zixuan's WeChat to send me messages, saying she was going to announce her marriage with you. Why bother? I said calmly. Don't do this again. You know her temper. If she finds out you're causing trouble behind the scenes, she definitely won't let it go. Ji Bo Da's arrogant posture suddenly faltered. He couldn't maintain his composure any longer. He raised his hand and punched me hard. I fell easily as if it didn't matter. So we started to wrestle again. In the end, I couldn't resist. A sudden punch landed directly on my head. It hit me so hard that my vision blurred, and I collapsed to the ground. My head was pounding with a buzzing sound. Then I spat out a mouthful of blood. Why you're bleeding? Ji Bo Da looked at me, his face filled with shock. I sat on the ground for a moment, gathering myself. I looked up at him and said, I have brain cancer. I'm going to die soon. So Tong Zixuan and I will never be together. Ji Bo Da's expression changed slightly. Why are you telling me this? I replied, I'm telling you so you don't worry. I propped myself up against the wall, wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth, and looked at him. Recently, Tong Zixuan's been working so much. She's probably trying to save up enough money to break her contract with your family, right? From Ji Bo Da's eyes, one knew I had guessed correctly. Back when Tong Zixuan went abroad to study music, and after she returned, she was packaged as a rich girl. It was all part of their behind-the-scenes operation. At the table of capital, there's never such a thing as a free lunch. Tong Zixuan signed a 5-year astronomical contract, and she has to pay a huge amount of money to regain her freedom. Now, with only a year left, she's in such a rush because she wants to announce our relationship at the concert. The reason I broke up with her was because I was tired. I didn't want to see her continue working with Ji Bo Da. This reason perhaps felt like a stone, weighing down on Tong Zixuan's heart. In the past 3 months, she's been working non-stop, her exhaustion evident. She even began to desperately appear on variety shows. Everything she did was to secure her contract termination, and then she could be with me again. Ji Bo Da, let's make a deal. As long as you let her go from the contract, I'll trick her into believing that I'm going abroad to marry Li Rying. That way, you still have a chance to be with her. Otherwise, if Tong Zixuan knows I'm going to die, she never accept you again. The living can never compete with the dead. Ji Bo Da bit his lip, paused for a long time, then asked, why should I trust you? I pulled out the report from my phone. Ji Bo Da glanced at it, and then agreed to my request. After he left, I cleaned the bloodstains, stood for a while, and went to find Ziyi. Ziyi noticed my pale face and quickly said, brother, you scared me to death. I've been looking for you everywhere. I thought you had fainted somewhere. I didn't have the strength to say anything more to her. I sent her back to the hospital. After returning home, I slept for a long time. When I woke up, it was raining heavily outside. Then I heard a knock on the door. I opened it to find Tong Zixuan standing outside, soaked to the bone. She was holding a contract tightly in her hands and hugged me tightly. Zhang Chen, I've terminated my contract with the company. I'm free now. We're both free now. I'll announce our relationship at the concert. Will you marry me? I could hear how excited Tong Zixuan was. She rushed over without caring whether she was being photographed. I let her inside the room, brought her a change of clothes. Tong Zixuan, I'm going abroad with Li Rying. I whispered. She's going to study for 4 years. She's going with me. Tong Zixuan furrowed her brow. You're going abroad for grad school? You never mentioned that before. Well, it's fine to go and see the world. I'll go with you. Anyway, I'm free now. I can arrange my own work schedule. I paused for a moment. We're planning to get married. Tong Zixuan squeezed the towel in her hand, looked up at me, as if she didn't understand what I said. Are you mad at me? That I didn't come to see you in the past 3 months? Tong Zixuan seemed a little anxious. I've been busy with the contract termination. I didn't come to see you because I didn't want Ji Boda to cause you trouble. Zhang Chen, I know you wanted to break up because you were tired, but from now on, I'll slowly start to transition. The company used to label me as a traffic singer, so I had a lot of aggressive fans. Once I transition, you won't have to worry about being attacked anymore, she hurriedly explained. I listened calmly. Tong Zixuan watched my expression and slowly quieted down. Tears shimmered in her eyes. She understood. I wasn't joking with her. At that moment, Li Rang opened the door and came in, holding some late-night snacks. Tong Zixuan glanced at Li Rang. In that instant, the air seemed to freeze. Tong Zixuan looked at me in disbelief. You two are living together? Zhang Chen, are you serious? I nodded. Tong Zixuan rushed out. She was afraid she couldn't control herself and would lose it here. After she left, I coughed up blood. I collapsed onto the floor. Li Rang ran over, hugging me. She spoke with pain. Why do this? Why, Zhang Chen? I closed my eyes, tears streaming down. Sis, now I finally understand. After my mom was diagnosed with cancer, what kind of mindset she must have had when she decided to leave my dad. When I was a kid, I didn't understand why she left me like that. Now I get it. Because she loved him. That's why before she died, she used her last bit of strength to give him freedom. The genius singer Tong Zixuan held a concert at the Bird's Nest. Among her set list, there was a new song, Listening to the Flowers Bloom. As she sang this song, she wore a black dress, holding a guitar. In that moment, it felt as if she shed all her fame and returned to her youth, back to when she was young, holding a cheap guitar, playing and singing in a chaotic bar. At that time, a boy would sit at the bar, listening quietly to her sing. Now, she has tens of thousands of fans, but she has lost the one who once mattered most. This song used to be one I only sang for one person. She didn't come to this concert, but I know she will hear me sing. After Tong Zixuan finished singing that song, she addressed the audience. This concert is my farewell performance. In an instant, the audience was stunned. Everyone was confused. No one knew what was happening. Tong Zixuan was a hot topic. She had real singing talent and a beautiful appearance. In the struggling music industry, her albums sold well. Many said, she saved the Chinese music industry. But at this moment, she was announcing her farewell concert. No one noticed. A small, unknown girl backstage, crying uncontrollably. Tong Zixuan sat at the edge of the stage, smiling as she said, when I debuted, the company packaged me as a genius singer who studied abroad. They made it seem mysterious. In reality, I wasn't from some wealthy family with special connections. I was born in a small town, never attended university, and my mother wasn't a rich lady. She raised me by singing in bars. When I was 16, she passed away due to illness. I also have a younger brother. He lost both parents at a young age. He has been living with us ever since. This song, Listen to the Flowers Bloom, it was a gift for her 18th birthday. I used to lie to the media. I had a boyfriend, the one I liked since I was 18. That person was my younger brother. I'm so sorry. I kept it hidden for so long. These passed for years. Because of your support, I was able to stand here and sing. Once, our shared dream was for me to become a big star, buy a big house, because we couldn't even pay for the heating bill. The winters were always so cold. So when she talked about the future, she always mentioned wanting to live in a warm, bright house. At 16, she first brought up this dream. Our mother was ill. She said it, hoping that the three of us would never be apart. At 18, she mentioned the dream again. She wanted me to go abroad to study without worries. In our lives, we've been apart twice. At 16, life forced us to separate. She went to Beijing, while my musical talent was trained by others. After 18, we reunited for only half a year. Then we had to part again. I worked hard studying abroad, while she waited for me to return home. As Tong Zixuan spoke, her head hung low. She choked up and couldn't continue. She tightly gripped the microphone, repeating Zhang Chen's name in her mind. It seemed that only by doing this could she continue speaking in a time when no one knew. They loved each other quietly. This time, Tong Zixuan wanted to announce to the world that she had once deeply loved a boy, despite the fact she had already lost him. She once thought that every parting was for a better reunion, but now it seemed parting is just parting. Such a sorrowful word, no matter how eagerly awaited, could not change its painful core. The fans in the audience had expressions that seemed stunned, as if they could hardly process all the information. On stage, Tong Zixuan was crying so much she couldn't speak. At 16, they parted for 2 years. She endured the pain but also longed for the reunion. At 18, they parted again for 2 years. She missed him, but also looked forward to the future. But this time, there was only pain and longing. There was no more hope for the future, because Zhang Chen's future now belonged to someone else. No matter what, we all love you. The fans reacting shouted wildly, "Sister, don't cry. You are you. Tong Zixuan, we love your songs." The passion of the fans, like the summer heat wave, swept everything away. Tong Zixuan's eyes were red as she looked at the sky and said, "At this moment, he is already on a plane heading abroad. The boy I loved, he's going to marry someone else. Zhang Chen, my brother, he's not planning to marry." Suddenly, a little girl ran up to the stage, her eyes swollen from crying. She frantically raised her phone and shouted, "Sister Tong Zixuan, Zhang Chen's brother is dying." She pushed her way through the crowd, climbing onto the stage. I approached Tong Zixuan. "I heard it all that day." She whispered, "Zhang Chen promised Jiboder. He lied to you, claiming he was leaving the country to get married. It was just a way to get Jiboder to cancel the contract with you." Xiaoyi handed her phone to Tong Zixuan, her voice breaking as she sobbed and yelled, "Zhang Chen Gao Gao really loves you. Tong Zixuan, big sister. Please say something to him. He's been listening to your concerts non-stop. But he can't hold on much longer." On the big screen, a boy appeared. His face was gaunt, his complexion pale. He lay on a hospital bed, smiling faintly through tears. "Tong Zixuan," he murmured softly, "don't cry. So many people are watching." This was Tong Zixuan's lover, revealed to the public for the very first time. Under the gaze of tens of thousands of fans, he said his goodbyes to Tong Zixuan. Everyone's eyes followed him. Zhongling closed his eyes. Tong Zixuan broke into uncontrollable sobs, then dashed out of the venue in a frenzy. On April 19, 2023, hundreds of thousands of Weibo profiles turned to the same monochromatic gray avatar. Hundreds of thousands of posts shared the same caption, "So loved to the death." Isn't just an ancient myth? In just 4 years since her debut, the brilliant singer Tong Zixuan, who had risen to the top ended her concert at the Bird's Nest Stadium, and then took her own life in the hospital by swallowing sleeping pills. In her final Weibo post, she wrote, "The boy I fell for when I was 18 was named Zhongshen." Following this, a post appeared from Zhongshen as well. "Listen, the flowers are blooming." It read, "The end."